I'm Abigail Riley. I'm the budget analyst for the fire department, and I'm here to introduce Steve Knight to give an update on the fire master plan. Steve, do you want to come on up? Steve is the representative from Rich and Associates. They are a consultant firm recommended by staff and adopted by council.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Steve Knight. Just a brief background for both me personally and the firm. Fitch and Associates has been around for 30 years in the public safety environment as a consulting firm. Something unique that we also bring to the table is that we have management contracts where
Patrick.
So we have management contracts, which allows us to practice what we preach, if you will. So we manage systems, so we're continuing to learn and refine our metrics, so we have a high degree of confidence when we make recommendations that they'll actually perform exactly as designed, because we are actually managing these projects ourselves. So for me personally, I retired as the assistant chief from a metro-sized fire department down in Florida. I actually live here in Buncombe County at this point. In addition to working as a firefighter, paramedic, and all the general positions as you move up to assistant chief, I worked with Mission on Fire Accreditation International for about 10 years as a peer team leader and technical advisor, so that will work very well with your agency, knowing that they're accredited. So we'll have a very robust understanding of the challenges and the commitments on that aspect. And then after I retired, I worked for the International City County Managers Association for 2 years, running their fire AMS consulting program before I moved over to Fitch about 4 years ago. So from a very high level, if you're not familiar, because it's been some time, the Fire Master Plan is really a future-oriented document, a planning document where the current standards that the fire department has today is more of an operational guiding document. So what our opportunity is to partner with the fire department and look at their general status quo operation of the current state of affairs as they are, and then start to map that against best practices, other like comparable communities, national standards, etc., as well as the own community expectations that you have. And then we'll do a gap analysis on that and start to build some future-oriented options for you. Some of the very high-level elements that were prescribed in the RFP was to validate the department's standard of cover and specifically look at options for station placement for the north side of Station 13. So that was one of the elements that was specifically identified. What I would like from you, if you don't mind, and I'm open to any questions, but it's been a considerable amount of time between the RFP process and now. So as expectations may change, we have an opportunity to refine the scope within the bid process starting now moving forward. So if there's any elements that we need to replace or make sure we pay attention to, we certainly have plenty of opportunity there. And which is a good segue, just the last piece that we wanted to share with you is that our consultant style, as well as your RFP that identified this, is going to be a very highly transparent, high engagement consultancy. So there will be no surprises at the end. And we'll make sure that we report back continuously and even have some one-on-ones with each of the elected officials as we get closer to the implementation plan. So everybody has a really robust understanding of the challenges with each decision model. So we'll work through that moving forward. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy. Okay.
Thank you.
Let you get on with your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next would be the Citizens Fire Academy.
I have a short presentation for you, but my name is Kelly Hines. I'm the fire marshal for the Asheville Fire Department in the city of Asheville. And I am over a division for the fire marshal's office who's over fire prevention, which includes code enforcement, fire investigations, and public education. And so what I want to present to you tonight is just it's called the Citizens Fire Academy. There's brochures in the back of the room. We have a few seats left, so I'm hoping that maybe y'all, in the interest of public safety, that's why you're here, may be interested in applying and joining us for this year's Citizens Fire Academy. Y'all have questions as far as what kind of runs does your fire department do? what do we respond to? How many trucks respond to them? How big is a truck? How much does a truck cost? How many firefighters do we have? How many fire stations do we have? All those questions that you never get to really ask and have the opportunity, we want to provide that to you about our fire department. So this PowerPoint is a slide that I put together after last year's. It just kind of gives you a glimpse of what we do during the Citizens Fire Academy. And then if you have questions or you do want to apply, they start on Wednesday, and Wednesdays runs nine weeks in the evening from 6 to 8:30 p.m. Hopefully that will work in your schedule. But if you have further questions after this very short PowerPoint, Jeremy Brooks is going to be helping organize that. He's our fire and life safety educator at the moment, and his phone number is up on the board in the back, as well as brochures and applications. You should slip through, and again, this is just a culmination of things that we did every week during the week to inform our citizens during the program. Do you have any questions while the slides are going through for me thus far? Jack was a fire dog that little place is right by the flag out front. Get to try on fire gear. Learn how to use fire extinguishers. Perform hands-only CPR. We visit different fire stations throughout the city, as well as our training center, our Buncombe County Training Center in Woodfin, which is what area you see here now on these next slides. Each week, there's about 45 minutes of kind of an explanation of that week's topic, and then you get an hour and a half of hands-on activities to do, which is, in my opinion, the best part about it. People say that's the most important piece of equipment on that truck is the portable commode. About 1 more minute left. know where your closest fire hydrant is to your house. So like I said, that's just a quick kind of overview and some of the things that you'll be able to learn and to take part in. The Citizens Fire Academy, this year will be the 3rd year for our Citizens Fire Academy, and we would love to have anybody who's interested. We have just a few more seats available, and we'd like to fill it up, so if anybody's interested, please get an application at the back of the room and let us know, and thank you for your time.
We certainly love for Kelly and Jeremy have done a lot of work putting this together, and I'd love for the community to use your contacts so that we can reach out to them as much as possible. It's been a great way for us to connect.
And are these sitting someplace?
There's a thing. Okay.
Okay, that brings us to new business and follow-up discussion of March 20th council work session and agenda items.
That was the budget session.
Yeah.
And the recommendations
Right,
for.
right. So do we need to redo that? Okay. Read from there. Okay. Let's move to B, presentation by Code for Asheville. Okay.
Hello, my name is Patrick Conan, and today I'm presenting the petition for police accountability through data transparency on behalf of Code for Asheville. First, I want to thank the Public Safety Committee for allowing us to present our proposal today. And a special thank you to all the members of our community who have signed and shared our petition and joined us today at this critical moment as we move this request into the city policy-making process. Like so many Asheville residents, I was horrified when I watched the video where an APD officer brutally assaulted an Asheville resident, Mr. Rush. There have been much needed expressions of anger, outrage, and frustration at the numerous breakdowns that allowed this incident to occur and prevented both council and the public from learning about it for months. However, for our city to move forward from this tragic incident, we need to talk about solutions, and I feel strongly that our city has a much better chance of success if we involve the community in that process. At the last Code for Asheville meeting, we discussed the incident and ways we might be able to make a difference. Those present came together on the idea of using our expertise with data and local government to create a formal request for increased transparency of our police department, tackling one piece of the larger issue, but an important one that can provide the public with the information and tools necessary to effectively participate in the process. We wanted to create a proposal that was created with broad input and support from individuals and groups in our community. I've learned in my experience with civic technology that it's important to create solutions with, not just for, those most impacted by our systemic issues. Our proposal reflects that collective knowledge. Our proposal is a formal request for City Council to take swift action regarding the release of data sets, policies, and reports, while also asking Council to revisit some existing proposals that have been made by other groups. By releasing this information to the public, we provide a basic level of transparency on the policies that direct our department, the internal safeguards that exist, as well as the data that reveals the outcome of those efforts. This information will empower our community to take a direct, active role in the important work of holding our police department accountable, and is a first step in the long process of rebuilding community trust in our department. Furthermore, I want to assure members of this committee that we have conducted extensive research on the data sets and policies that we're requesting. We understand that the release of public safety data is something to be done carefully with consideration for privacy concerns, personnel matters, and state law. All of the data sets we're requesting have been released by other cities, and many cite these efforts towards transparency as a major factor in providing and improving police-community relations, especially when incidents occur. While some of the data sets do touch on topics that contain personal or personnel information, we're specifically requesting the data associated with these reports, which is a public record under NC law. This request aligns with the City of Asheville open data policy, with the March 5th statement by Gary Jackson that there is strong direction from the City Council that in all matters, especially those involving police, the city should be as transparent as possible to the citizens, and is also in alignment with best practice recommendations from organizations like What Works Cities, the Governance Lab at NYU, and the Center for Government Excellence at Johns Hopkins University. Despite our open data policy, many of these items we're requesting are not easily accessible to the public. Some require the long process of a public records request, and in some instances, even those requests have been denied. We call on council to make a clear statement that transparency in police-related data is important to our city, and provide clear direction to staff to facilitate the release of this information. We've had instances where EPD and the community come to different conclusions about issues, even though we're both talking about data. And this proposal is the strongest way for council to get everyone on the same page by providing the public with the same information used to generate reports to council. This also provides citizens with the critical information they need to participate effectively in our public process, allowing for collaborative efforts on solutions to our most challenging issues. With all that being said, we understand that transparency alone will not solve our larger issues. Our goal is to present a clear proposal focused on common sense, low-cost steps that our city can take to increase the transparency and accountability of our police department, while allowing other groups to take the lead on many other aspects of reforms that are necessary. To allow the community to participate in the process of this request, we posted a petition on change.org, and we also have paper copies available here with us today if anyone would be interested in helping us to gather more signatures. What we've seen is an outpouring of support from our community. Code for Asheville is really a very small group, but the support for this proposal extends far beyond our limited membership. We've received official endorsements from several organizations: Feel Loved Asheville, Homeless Voice, Faith for Justice, Coven Olden Wild, Sunlight Foundation, and Code for America. And there's many other organizations we're talking with. We just haven't received an official endorsement at this point. As this proposal moves forward, we're going to keep on advancing those efforts. And on the petition, we've received almost 600 signatures so far, and we're going to keep trying to get more. We are requesting that the Public Safety Committee take action in support of our proposal and allow us to present at the next available meeting of the full City Council. Now I'd like to briefly highlight each of the items we're requesting without going into all the details because you have the paper copy in front of you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Broadly, our request focuses on three areas. The first is data sets. We're requesting data be released to the public on the city's open data feed related to use of force, which is, as we all know, there's restrictions around releasing the reports themselves. But cities such as Fayetteville, North Carolina already release a data feed that shows some of the basic factual information. The date, the time, the general location, the type of force used, and demographic information like that. Emergency call data, which is really calls for service or 911 call data, can help citizens understand how our police resources are deployed in the community. And again, we can deal with privacy concerns there by using a general location, not a specific address, and following models in other cities like San Francisco that have released that information. The third, data set crime reports. This is something the city puts out today. And towards the end of last year, some of the feed became better, but some of the historical information was lost. So our request is pretty simple there, that we would like the historical information restored to the feed. It's used by the city's Simplicity app. It's also used by a site I built called Asheville Crime that broke that data down by neighborhood. Citation and arrest data is a new data set, but the difference between that and a crime report is a report might be filed but no one's arrested or cited. By doing citation and arrest data separately, it allows analysis around trends of enforcement of crime, as many people in our community have requested in response to this issue. The fifth data set is citizen complaints. And again, this is one of the topics where there are some restrictions under state law, but I think we should start at the basic level. Can we make a data feed that shows how many complaints have been filed, just like comes out at the end of the year in the professional standards report, but do it real time so we can track trends as they occur instead of looking back a year. The traffic stop report data, I would add some context here that the police department has done a great job of enhancing their traffic stop report that they collect for each stop. However, some of that additional information, in particular geographic location, doesn't go to the state database because they don't require it. So for the public to see that data, our city will have to release a separate feed of that information. There's also the quarterly reports that APD provides to council on traffic stops. These contain a lot of maps, tables, aggregated information, and what we're asking there is to be able to see the raw data so that we can do further analysis of it. And finally, our last data set is demographic information of APD officers. I noticed that Fayetteville also releases this information. This request aligns with council and APD's goals to hire more minority officers and would give the public a way of monitoring the progress of those efforts. So that's all the data sets we're requesting, and a lot of this is all data that already exists. We're not asking the city to spend a lot of money to create it, just to release it to the public. The next section of our request is around policies and reports. And some of these things shouldn't be difficult either. The APD policy manual, this is something that was actually fulfilled by a public records request recently on a site I run called Sunshine Request. Well, we would like to see that posted on the city website so that any citizen who's wondering what the policy is for X can go and figure it out. And that allows them to participate more fully in policy reform that puts another set of eyes on something that right now hasn't been publicly available. Similarly, the second item there, internal reports, that means any report that APD uses internally, some of those, when they're filled out, have personnel restrictions. But we would like to be able to see a blank copy of the form so we know what's collected. The third item here is internal audits of body-worn cameras. The body-worn camera policy specifies a clear process for audits, and I think that that's a great step, but we need a system for accountability there. So in this case, we're actually recommending that those audits, the results of those, are provided to this committee and also posted for the public to see. And then finally, the last one, this one's a little different, but we would encourage the city for committee meetings like this to record them and publish them like they do city council meetings. Because not everyone can be here physically, and it can become really hard to participate in the process just for those minutes. So by recording and making available more videos of police-related or any other committee meeting that has a significant public interest, we can allow people to stay involved. The final piece of our request is requesting the council revisit or continue efforts on a few recommendations that have already been made. The first is the Blue Ribbon Committee recommendations for Human Relations Commission. City Council is moving forward with those efforts, and we just wanted to indicate our support for those, for continued progress on that. The second is the proposal from the NAACP and the Southern Coalition for Social Justice in response to the traffic stop analysis done by Ian Nance. We think that those policy recommendations warrant another look. In particular, written consent is a policy that's come up from a number of groups in different contexts, and we would encourage council to revisit that policy. The third is an anti-retaliation policy. I know from some public records that there's been some progress in writing an anti-retaliation policy for the city, but I'm not clear if it's adopted. And we think, in light of this incident and how the video was released, it's important for the city to have clear guidelines and employee knowledge around things like the internal hotline that exists. So people who see wrongdoing know how they can act on that. And finally, our final ask is for City Council to direct staff to join the Police Data Initiative. The Police Data Initiative is a law enforcement community of practice that includes leading law enforcement agencies, technologists, and researchers committed to engaging their communities in a partnership to improve public safety that is built on a foundation of trust, accountability, and innovation. Participating agencies in North Carolina already include Charlotte, Fayetteville, Chapel Hill, and Kinston. That's all I have to say, so I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
I don't have any questions. Thank you for your thorough report. My question is for the committee. When a community group makes this type of presentation, within our minutes, do we reflect their recommendations? Is there a way that we can upload this?
Well, I would just propose that we send this to full council.
Before we do that though, what I would suggest is we give it to, city staff, because some of these, although, you know, Patrick doesn't think they're gonna cost any money, they will cost some money. And so I'd like to get a sense of, you know, what this would entail to implement the various recommendations, you know, from a staffing perspective or cost to retain records and those kind of things. Just because I think before making a decision like that, you probably
Which
need
could
to
be
know.
given at the same time you made the presentation.
Yeah, if they could, I don't know the turnaround time for something like that.
I would say just from my perspective, I would prefer if the staff report did come at the same time instead of, say, me presenting this before full council and then it goes to staff and comes back. So
Right.
I think that makes sense.
I think to have like a full picture of what it would entail and, you know, clearly get,
Both of these things, they have to move quickly.
so.
Yeah, I have to check. I don't know right now how long it'll take. I mean, we will work to make it happen as soon as possible. And I have to get our legal staff involved and then.
And
we-
IT, clearly,
Yeah.
right.
Right. And I would say just, I know from my own knowledge that IT staff are looking into some of these data sets already and working with APD on that. So-
Okay.
And it would be helpful for you to hear a report from staff on which of those are already being.
Right. And then, but the additional thing, I'd like, it's not clear to me that, how much effort would go into redacting. You know, is that for somebody to go through and line out, or how could we do this, with more technology and less manual? So I think that's gonna be a question with some of these pieces of information that the community's asking for that might include, that the original report would include either citizens' names or officers' names. How easily could we take those names out of there? So
Right.
that's,
And ideally, and I don't know for sure, say using use of force, but there's, you know, what's called blue team reports, so that's entered into a system somewhere.
right.
So I would hope rather than having to manually redact the reports, we can get a data feed out of that.
Right. I
That
mean,
doesn't contain any of the sensitive information.
So that's what I would propose next steps, and I don't think it would need to come back to this committee before, they would just be together. And then you'll just get back to council for, as to timing.
As to when it'll be on your agenda.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next we have a presentation of policy proposals by Homeless Voice.
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sonia Morgan, and I'm here this afternoon representing Be Loved and Homeless Voice of Asheville. We're suggesting some policy changes that would promote a more productive and respectful way to address the issues that the homeless community faces on a daily basis. Too many of our homeless people are being harassed and ticketed for trespassing in public places. I personally have witnessed our homeless people simply walking down the street, being stopped and searched for no apparent reason other than wearing a backpack. These stops are unfair, biased, and consume city resources unnecessarily. In addition to insulting and embarrassing people that are already dealing with a plethora of issues. We genuinely want to work with the Asheville Police Department and City Council to find a solution to these trespassing issues as well as other issues. We're asking for written consent for these illegal searches, and this is just one of the many issues that Amy will be bringing to your attention. Homeless Voice of Asheville, as a part of the Asheville community, request that you act on these proposed policy changes. Thank you.
I'll hand these out. Thanks, Sonia. City Council folks, thank you so much for your work with us. Just want to really appreciate and show gratitude to both this committee and the committee from last year. We've been working on this for about a year and a half now in the process, and we just appreciate being able to work together with city council members and staff members to come up with good community solutions to community struggles. And so our group, Homeless Voice, are folks who are currently and formerly homeless, folks who are working to amplify their voices in public policy decisions that directly impact the homeless community, and also to be the people we've been waiting for in terms of creating projects that we can do ourselves to improve the community. And so I want to thank Sonia for speaking today. I just want to walk you through the 6 things that we are bringing for consideration today, and we've been working on this for a year and a half, and so our hope is that we can get some kind of action or some kind of movement forward today. We know that we may not can resolve everything today, but we just want to present these and hopefully have some next steps by the end of today. The first thing is our first policy change is with regard to trespass. What we found when we pulled public data over the last 10 years, and even if we look at just a year's swath currently, what we see is that what we're mostly dealing with is trespass charges. So people who are homeless that are in some place where they can't be, and it's much of the city at night where folks cannot be because of trespass, and so wind up being cited or arrested for that, or walking through a parking lot. And we know in the case of Mr. Rush that he was stopped for walking through a parking lot for trespassing and also jaywalking. And so these are some of the things that we see routinely with folks on the streets, that we think that there are ways to prevent that, and we know that it's costly in more ways than one. It costs the system when we're charging people, it costs our police to go out, it costs the court, it sometimes costs the jailing system. It also costs people the ability to more easily get into housing and access employment when they have a criminal record. So what we're recommending is that if a person who's potentially homeless is trespassing, or that they would be asked to move rather than being cited or arrested. And so that's the policy change 1. And then policy change 2, I want to talk kind of connected to that. Officer Evan Coward, one of the things that he said is that the goal is to take homeless people to services and to offer those services, which we applaud and we wish to see much more of. And so we feel like as a demonstration of positive community policing that that should be documented. If a person is offered services or taken to services by the police department. He indicated that at this time, the time that he came to this committee, that was not being documented, and we feel like that would be a good way to begin to clearly see patterns. Officer Evan Coward. And so those 2 policy recommendations are things we believe that are in the power of the police department to change. We do have a meeting set with Chief Hooper in 2 weeks. I just wanted to let you know that. And so what we'd be hoping on these 2 things from this committee today would be that y'all
would endorse that we would work with the chief to move these things forward in whatever way that we would be able to do under her guidance. The third policy change is written consent, which Sonia alluded to, and I know the previous Patrick also alluded to, along with the NAACP Criminal Justice Committee. We believe written consent searches are something that we desperately need here. In our case, as Sonia said, we have people routinely stopped and have their bags searched by the police in ways that don't feel as consent driven as they probably need to be, and so we feel like written consent just makes it very, very clear that folks have certainly given consent and understand what their rights are being searched. So that's policy change 3. Policy change 4 regards public restrooms, and this is why we were really wanted to be on the agenda today, because we know it's budget season and we know that this would require some budget. There was a report that came to this committee about the cost of public bathrooms from city staff this past year, and so and no action was taken at that time, and so our hope is that we can take some action to move toward more public restroom access. We know people are being charged with public urination in a city where we don't have 24/7 bathroom access, and where our city streets downtown are lined with signs that say no public bathroom, and we know that this is a public health emergency in terms of that, and something that is a human function. And so we ask that there be at least one 24/7 restroom open this year in the city budget, and our hope would be that we could expand restroom hours, particularly on Sundays. That's where we see a lack sort of across the restrooms that we have, and a commitment to creating more facilities in the future. So our hope is that would be moved today from this committee to at least the finance committee for budget consideration. And we would hope Haywood Street would be the one to be a 24/7 facility. We know that's connected to a parking garage, and so we might could use budget from that for parking services rather than the general fund. So just all of those sort of to note. We've talked to our group about which of the 3 might move forward rather than all 3. In that staff report, all 3 were looked at, which we know is a considerable budget item, and so we're trying to sort of find a compromise and at least move that up in some way.
What location are you thinking about on Haywood Street?
The Haywood Street, there's a Haywood Street restroom that's right by the substation downtown, right in front of the parking garage there, I think. So that is what our group has sort of said would be the best for a 24/7 facility. It's most centrally located. Policy change 5 has to do with restricted access to parks, and you all had a report that also came to this committee about that. This came up because we began to see people being banned from all parks, all city parks, and so as many of y'all have been to our homeless voice meeting, Councilwoman Mayfield came during the summer when we raised concern about this, and folks told stories, and so she asked for a report from staff, and so that's how the staff report came to this group recently. And what we noted on the last slide is it said there are 5 things that might get you banned from parks, and 3 of those, particularly I think Councilwoman Smith noted, seem to be targeting folks who potentially were homeless. And so what we're asking for simply is that access to public parks be open to everyone in a non-discriminatory fashion. People should not be penalized for having nowhere else to go to do what human beings must do, like sleeping and having belongings. Any restriction policy should not target a group of people and should only happen in extreme circumstances. We'd like for you all today to recommend that members of the Homeless Voice work with city staff to reevaluate and rewrite the current policy to create better procedures around it. And finally, policy change 6 is just our endorsement of the report that you just heard for open data. Much of the work that we did really began from folks' stories and experiences as we came together at Homeless Voice and began to talk about this issue. But we began to really move this forward by looking at public data and looking at patterns that we emphasize it to come together with the city to create some good solutions. We know that when we use resources, public resources well, that it's less costly to the city and really helps us move toward the goal of ending homelessness here in our community. I wonder if folks have questions, and I know we have folks from Homeless Boys here that would love to make public comment at some point also. Yeah.
Can we discuss first how we might want to act here?
You're the chief of this.
Okay, but I'm also learn. As far as the public restrooms, would y'all be open to sitting this finance to hear these?
Speak up, speak up.
Sorry. Well, I'm trying to figure how if the committee would like us to go to finance as far as hearing numbers around the public restrooms, or, I mean, I support us having a 24-hour public restroom, and I have not stated that strongly enough in past meetings, and I feel badly about that. So this is something that I think is very important, and I would like it to at least be considered in the upcoming budget.
I agree, we don't have much time, so I believe our next
I don't know what-
finance meeting is when the agenda already set.
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Well, I would like to see, I wasn't on this committee when whatever proposal was put forward, so, I guess I would like staff to revisit that with this idea of, prioritizing one, or if the staff has some other ideas that it's gonna make it more feasible fiscally than maybe the ideas that came up in the past, because, frankly, we are looking at a very significant budget gap for next year. This, although a good idea, and I think it is a great idea, this was not brought up during the council retreat. This wasn't a priority that council brought up, and typically when we have like new initiatives or new capital projects that are significant or not, sometimes not even significant, that's where it initiates. So I feel I'm a little concerned about kind of opening it back up and sort of changing the procedure. But if staff can come up with, some ideas that wouldn't be over the top fiscally, I would support that.
I can tell you that the report that came to this committee was initiated by this committee. And then it was a staff report on restrooms, and so really looked at the whole spectrum of budget, from just adding a few hours to taking them all 24/7. We recognize that there is a budget deficit, and that's why we have not asked for all of them to be taken to 24/7, but certainly some extensions of hours that make sense, and at least one that really gets at those night hours where nothing is open would be super helpful to our community, and certainly I think not really a new project as we already have the public restrooms, but would be some extension of services, and really why we also chose Haywood Street, because not only is it central, but it's connected to a parking garage, so it would come
Yeah,
under
that's an
different
interesting
pot
idea,
of funding.
if we could.
I can also say that the Downtown Association just met their parking subcommittee, and they got a report where we basically had to rebuild a stairwell because of it rotting, the metal rusted. The person making the report said, this is not exterior, it's not exposed to the rain, and so we know that this is from public urination. And so it's costly, it's gonna cost on the back end, and it makes sense to stand up for human dignity on the front end. I think it supports all the interests of downtown, and I think lots of folks would weigh in on that.
And the other question I had, Amy, was, we've got the homeless initiative, homeless, HIAC. Have they weighed in on this?
Not on this full proposal. We've talked to Hayek at various times throughout the process of this year and a half, for sure.
Okay, so at a minimum, I'd like HIAC to take a look at it. I mean, and I mean, I talked to the chief before this afternoon, and she said that, she's got a meeting with you.
Yes.
And so, you know, I'd like the department, the police department to come back and talk to this committee about the non-fiscal issues and, you know, how they actually are dealing with these various issues and get their input maybe next month, if we could put it on the agenda. For the policy changes, not the restrooms, because I don't think that's a police, you know, they're not gonna make that decision.
And I think much of this gets handled under discretion, and what we're really asking for is a written policy, so it's really clear, across the board that this is how we're gonna handle this.
Right.
We know a lot of officers in their discretion do a really good job with this, and we know that, other folks end up with tickets, and so, and arrests, and so we're really trying to minimize the human damage and also costs, because we need that money to build housing and get people into housing, and so that's sort of where we come down, and like I say, we wanna work with the department, and what we're asking for today is your support and our working with the department on these issues.
Well, I certainly support that. I would also say that on 5, the restricted access, could that not also be part of your discussion with Chief Cooper? Or
I
is
believe that that's with the
Parks and
Recreation, and
Rec.
although, you know, I know that the police department does a piece of that, you know, we'll certainly have a conversation with Chief Cooper when we meet
Who
about
does
it.
it, but the actual restrictions, when folks get restricted, that would be from a citation.
Typically, so.
You
so-
mean it initiates with the police department?
Well, the police department often keeps records of that and whatnot.
Okay.
But I think clearly, you know, from the report and presentation, it's very clear that often the folks that get banned from parks are people who are homeless. And that's unfortunate because we're banning people from some of the last places that they have
Right.
because those are public places. And so an across the board ban,
Where are they supposed to go?
when you're, you know, when you're camping or sleeping in one park and then now you can't go to any park, for a year, that takes a toll on a person. And so it just doesn't seem like a really reasonable policy. I think we can create some better, more reasonable policies that don't restrict access across the board for folks.
When was the first time you brought information about extending bathroom hours to this committee or to any city department?
We began to talk about it, you know, last year as we were working on this, and so we had a request from this committee to actually get information from staff. So we have a very lengthy report from staff about this that really itemizes, looks at all the different ways we could go with this. Then we took it back to our group because we were like, you know, this is a large budget outlay, and what, you know, where do we think, you know, we most need it? And so we brought input back, I believe the following month, about, you know, that we had said Haven Street seems to be the most centrally located and potentially where we would think a 24/7 restroom would be. We recognize that this is probably a multi-year process to get us where we need to be, but we certainly would love to see at least some work toward that in this year's budget.
But see, what I'm getting is that it's been bounced back to
It's
staff.
multiple,
And I don't wanna do
multiple
that
times.
again. I believe that we're in a cycle where our budget is always already looking like it's in deficit. And I just wanted to move very expediently to that level, to the finance committee for any type of considerations. And then whatever they come with, maybe then it can go back to staff to figure out how they can trim it so that it can be better considered as a budget item.
Absolutely. And I think it just didn't get routed to finance after the report came to this committee. But I don't feel like, you know, folks on the street should be faulted for that. You know, even our fire trucks have bathrooms on board. So I mean, that says a lot, right? That we all need restrooms when we need them. And so, you know, clearly there's some residents of this community that don't have access to a restroom. They can't go into a restaurant downtown because the sign says, if you're not a customer, you can't use this restroom. And that's a public safety hazard, it's a public health hazard, and it's just dehumanizing, and I think we can do better than that in this community. And because there's already this report, I think finance associated with it, and so, I don't think staff's gonna have to draft something for you, I think it's already been done, that work, and I think it could very easily go to finance with the numbers that you need to make that decision this year about what might could be done. And as I say, I think because it could fall under parking services, it could be something that we could look at in terms of avoiding taxing the general fund more.
So there's two finance committee meetings
We've got the
this
work
week.
session on Thursday.
There's a, yeah, so we can pull that report and see if we can have something to the finance committee for the Thursday work session. That's looking more in detail at some of the deficit issues. I mean, we can do our very best to get it added to that agenda. If we can't, and I'm assuming that we can, but if we can't, then we can still include it by the April 10th budget work session. So you have a budget work session then, it would just be that the finance committee members may not have the ability to see it in the public, their committee meeting, but it still could get on the budget work session.
That feels better.
So the goal would be to get it Thursday. That meeting's at 11:30, Wednesday on the first floor conference room. And then we have a work session, with city council on April 10th. So we will hit, if not both of those, we will at least hit the April 10th date.
Okay. And Amy, how are you gonna get this through HIAC again?
I think
Formally?
it's tomorrow.
They do?
I mean,
I can speak to public comment tomorrow even.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, I think it's important that we make sure that all the interested groups, since we do have a.
Let me just do a quick check-in with Heather on the agenda.
And I can forward that, that report around public restrooms, I can do it as soon as I leave the podium, so you have a little bit more eyes on it.
Hey, when is your meeting with, Chief Hoover?
April 16th.
Because I almost feel, would it feel appropriate for one of us to attend that meeting, just so we can be in conversation about, how we can move forward on these recommendations?
I would appreciate that. One of y'all could attend.
At least one of us can attend, I think, we can support this forward.
So Heather was just sharing with me that the homeless advisory, doesn't require they have a full agenda. They meet the fourth Tuesday of every month, so if we could add this to their meeting at the end of April. I think because they don't have the budgetary constraints, that would be our recommendation. If that's okay with you all.
That's perfect.
And that'll be
That's fine.
after your meeting with
After
Chief
your meeting
Hoover,
with
so.
Chief.
Yeah, I think the goal for us being on this agenda today was primarily
budget.
with the public restrooms, knowing that, this is of the essence, and it had to come back to this committee since the report was made here.
And, okay, and you also asked that we endorse your meeting with the chief, we obviously do that.
Thank you.
And, so if anyone wants to make a public comment at this point around this?
Step it up.
Step up.
I'm stepping up. Hello, folks. Hi, and hey, you all as well. I'm James Gambrell. I'm a part of the community of Vila, as well as known as Vila Asheville. And I'm here to say that I was here at a meeting several months ago with Julie Mayfield and Cecil, sitting where y'all were at, so that's how long ago it was. And a law enforcement agent was asked to step up to the podium where I'm at right now, and he gave a statement saying that people who were gotten for trespassing were taken and dealt with in a humane manner, along the lines of giving them resources and taking them to be taught and trained on towards how to use resources and stuff. This is a flat out lie. It is, because every time we open, we have more than 200 people coming to our place. 90% of them are homeless people who sleep out in the streets and such and camp out and stuff like that, and not a single one of them has ever experienced such a event as that law enforcement agent told the two people that I mentioned earlier were sitting where you all are sitting now. Okay, so like what Amy said, there should be a on record account of this action, and for them to actually do it instead of just telling city council that they did it to I don't know why, but a lie's a lie. Okay, so now urination, urination and such. I recently found out that there is a stairwell and when parking decks that maybe fixing to fall, you know, screws getting loose and stuff like that because of urination on it. Okay, we need a public restroom open 24 hours a day. Okay, that's obvious, and it's for sure. I'm surprised it hadn't happened yet, but we're pushing forward for better tomorrow. Okay, now I would say on towards the stairwell, I would say that it's not the homeless people that are doing that, because people who are homeless have been mistreated several times by law enforcement agents here in Asheville, and they know not to be caught in that stairwell peeing. They know that the consequences is horrendous for them. So I would say that it's people coming out of the beer garden and stuff like that that are doing that. And so that's more of the reason why we need a public restroom, because I'm going to say the dirty truth of Asheville. Asheville is hugely focused on tourists and will bend over backwards for tourists. You know, and so there you go. You know, if we'll bend over backwards for tourists, you know, why not, you know, have a public restroom for them as well? And that's all I got to say.
My name's Stephanie Irwin. I just feel like it's awful that most of the homeless people are veterans that has risked their lives for us. They have went out there and fought for the U.S. and most of them, they can't get benefits, they can't get anything, and they're on the streets. And I think it's pitiful. A lot of them, people have been to prison, yes, but to me, they need a second chance. I've been to prison myself. Does that make me a bad person? No. I made a mistake. And I can't be a nurse now that I wanted to be. I can't do things that I want to do in my life. Because I'm a felon now. And I think it's ridiculous that we can't have a second chance. And I think that needs to be worked on. Because if, I'm going to say it, what would Jesus do? What would God do? Think about it. He wouldn't just give up. He wouldn't say, I don't want you anymore. Would he? So, think about that for a change. Thank you.
Steve?
I don't know if I have enough people to get 10 minutes. I don't know if I need, because, so I got 3 or 4 people. Do you get 10 here sometime?
As far as I know,
What's the
it's the
rule?
rule.
What's-
I'm not sure I know the rule, but that's the only rule I'm aware of.
It's not gonna take that long.
Okay.
My name is Dee Williams. I was on I chaired the NAACP Criminal Justice Committee, and currently I represent North State Law Enforcement Association and also NOBLE, which is the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. So one of the things that I've noticed is the primary reason why we're here is because black bodies generally get beat up. Okay, I'm the first person to rise up and speak about this today, and I've heard a lot of conversation talking about we can't afford to keep beating people up either and hurting them and possibly killing them. We talked about a budget deficit during the last council campaign that we ran, and we knew it. If I saw it then, and I know how to read a financial statement, I know damn well y'all saw it too, so we don't have to deal with it. But we're not gonna allow black bodies and other bodies that are less fortunate to be victimized by police forces with individuals who run rampant for no good reason other than that they're ill-trained, probably ill-paid, and ill-informed. So I just want to say that the ways that they propose are low-cost and no-cost ways. If you would look at the deployment and the actual hours that are spent over policing in the black community, parked right across from public housing, you know, as a matter of fact, when I sat with the chief and we were looking at the data sets, when we pulled this team together, we made sure that data was first and foremost. I know a lot of y'all don't really understand or know this, but some of us are capable of doing that kind of work. So that's what we did. We pulled in code for Asheville, PRC applications, and other folks, so that we could depersonalize what was really going on. Basically, periodically, we met with the chief, and we looked at a couple of things that happened last cycle. Was the fact that we recommended the written consent and other policies. But what came back was something that was totally skewed in terms of deployment. It looks like what they call predictive policing, utilizing proprietary software, and there's no input as far as data sets. We don't have access to that. And that is what was giving us substantiation for over-policing. And this is what caused Mr. Rush the situation. That predictive policing software is something that's at issue. It's a license to really discriminate. And if y'all haven't heard, and a lot of people haven't, a lot of this policing comes from the old slave patrols. A lot of people don't want to deal with it. But until we deal with racism, systemic and structural racism, all of these little tidbits that people are asking for that are, some of them disjointed and trying to put a Band-Aid on cancer, they're not going to work. We haven't done the work. We have not done the most important work. And I know that it's not politically correct for me to stand up here and say this, but it looks like I'm the only one who doesn't have anything at stake to be able to say it. So I stand here without abandon, and I do so. So the thing that I'm saying to you is, and then the other thing, let me just say, I'm used to dealing with things that are at arm's length. It's called ethics. It means that you don't handpick a committee to change any institution. It has to be disruptive. And so, like Einstein said, no problem can be solved with the same energy or whatever that created. You can't pick people, handpick them because they're acquiescent to solve a problem. You're not going to get the best people, and you're not going to get, you don't have input from the community. And a lot of our people who are getting the hell beat out of them are nowhere near or ever nominated to these committees. That's the other thing. There's a lot of exclusion going on here in Asheville, and I wonder when black folks and white folks who are both poor are going to wake up and exercise the vote. They haven't done adequate. One of the things that we've done is allowed ourselves to be told that we can't be afforded. We're dying. There should not even be a discussion of cost. I've seen more enthusiasm put into a beer drinking district than saving black lives and black lives. So I am totally offended at this. I don't give a damn if you don't have $1 in the bank. It is to be used to uplift our people. And you can talk about costs all you want to. You've blown more money than this on retreats before, and I saw it. So let's not get into that aspect. The other thing is that when you talk to people, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, whether the chief state, because I can take boo-boo to climb, and if they do what they're told, and they're given a system of accountability that works, you can make something out of anybody. Let me just say this, because I'm going to close. Written consent is a start. Not enforcing all of these situations, these petty crimes or urination and all of that. You know, they got Mr. Rush for jaywalking. And I told the chief, I said, you're going to keep on over-policing people. Somebody's going to either get killed or get hurt. And look what happened. And it's all after the fact. There's some folks y'all listen to, and then there's some folks, and then y'all, a lot of times you really don't even listen. And we see it evidence in our lives. We see it. We're not valued. We're not valued at all. And so I'm wondering, and I'm putting a call out to black folks and white people of conscience. If you want to stop this, there's a movement that's going to be taking place and some workshops. And we need to get together to find out how we can take this city back and how we can make sure that we can live here, irregardless of where we come from. This is America. Let it be America for everybody. So it'll be, just look for the announcements. I guess they'll put it on social media. But we need to get our votes together, like those kids we're talking about. We need to get this police force together, because I don't want to see another person killed, maimed, or hurt by them. And I've seen this all my life. I'm a native. This is ongoing. It never stops. And we have risk factors, health factors, Police brutality is a social determinant of health. We've got the lowest income African Americans in North Carolina. Our children have the widest achievement gap. We have nothing to be proud of here. This is a disaster. And we're gonna also send in to the CDC this information about the last traffic stop data. We exceed any city in North Carolina in traffic stops. Don't pay attention to what's on the website. That needs to come down. Just look at the Bureau of the Department of Justice in North Carolina and you'll see it. So thank y'all, and please stay tuned. We don't need to beg, we need to exert our constitutional rights and promote our own interests. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Ashley Cooper. I have a deep gratitude for everyone from Homeless Voices and Ms. Williams who spoke today. There's an organizing slogan that says, "Nothing about us without us." And it's used to communicate the idea that no policy should be decided by any representative without the full and direct participation of members of the groups affected by that policy. And I think that this is a real example today of you have people that are most affected who are stepping forward and not only saying, hey, there's problems that we're facing, but giving really concrete solutions, and solutions that don't just look at what their immediate needs are, but are taking into account the whole system of financing and what's feasible and what's not feasible. So both what we've heard from Homeless Voice Project and what we're hearing from Code for Asheville is a real example of the opportunity for more partnership. And I'm really glad, Councilwoman Smith, that you mentioned the possibility of going to meet with Chief Cooper with Amy, because it just feels like this back and forth of like, okay, well, this is going to go to that department, and you need to meet with finance, and then we'll bring it back to you. And how about some more effective organizing processes where people get in the same room at the same time, so council members can be in there and chief can be in there and people impacted, and so that the decision making can actually be happening together as a community, as opposed to right now where it feels like community members put forth information, y'all listen to the input, and then you go away, decide what to do with it, talk to city staff, and then you come back and say, this is what we've decided. We're looking at problems that are too big for that. They're problems that require the whole system to be part of the decision-making process. And you're getting demonstration about like what accountability and transparency really can look like. These are essential elements that we have to be doing better. I mean, the statistics, and like Ms. Williams just said, the statistics are horrible in our city and they're getting worse. And it's happened on some of your time here on council. And so something serious has to change in order to shift these dynamics. Just as far as the parking garage and that's not extending the bathroom, that's not currently on your initiative. Equity is on your initiative, and I don't believe it says racial equity specifically, so providing access to basic human needs is an equity need. Excuse me. And then I just want to say too that the public's capacity for analyzing data and for, as you make information more transparent, the capacity of the community and the people to know what to do with that information in order to inform. Again, it's been demonstrated beautifully here today. So I just hope that there's some inspiration from today and then some really concrete actions of fundamental processes and practices that have to change about how council and the committees operate to be a more inclusive democratic process. Thank you.
My name is Casey Campfield. When the good folks that serve Asheville's homeless community came up here, they thanked you. They offered you gratitude. You should be thanking them, offering them gratitude. The services they're providing, holding a community together, they're keeping them out of your hair, they're keeping them out of the police department's hair, they're saving lives on a shoestring budget. No budget. I've done fundraisers for Beloved House. Like, these people are good people, they're working on nothing. When they come to you and they ask for one bathroom, you're making them beg for scraps. You're saying, we'll go to this board, we'll go to that board to see if we can keep one bathroom open for 24 hours a day. When you look at this park, like, what money went into this park? What money went into one of those benches or one of those trees over there? When the police department comes and asks for an extra $1 million a year for additional policing, which every activist came out and said, without structural changes, that $1 million a year is going to be used to abuse minority populations, and that was what was going on. That was going on during that time and after that time. I drove down Charlotte Street on Saturday, and I had to slow down 3 times for people crossing the street, jaywalking, across the street, leaving the rally. I agree with the tenor of the rally, but there were 3 people that I had to hit my brakes as they were crossing a crowded street, 4 lanes of traffic. Where were the police to stop them from jaywalking? They were white people. The police weren't going to come and stop them from jaywalking. That's not how policing works in Asheville. We have the worst statistics in the state for racial profiling, for racialized stops and searches, the worst in the state. And that state is North Carolina. So that puts us in running for the worst in the country. That's embarrassing, that's humiliating, that's horrible, that's an affront. And I mean, if the stats got worse from 2016 to 2017, if things do not improve drastically this year, like, what are you doing? What are any of you doing? Like, we can't just keep coming and having the same conversation over and over again. Like, this has to change. It has to change now. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Claire Hanrahan. I've lived downtown Asheville for near 30 years. I see a lot coming and going on the streets. I wouldn't want to pit public restrooms against trees or benches, but I might implore this city to think about giving a 6-month retirement to a disgraced city manager, which is the equivalent of about $100,000. How many 24-hour bathrooms would that sort of thing buy? And as far as the vulnerability, I live on Social Security, and what I get on Social Security wouldn't afford me even a room in Asheville. So I'm grateful that I have access to HUD subsidized housing downtown. Were that not the case, many, many, many folks of my age and income level would be on these streets. I'm not a felon. I have spent time in prison for political action, but I met a lot of people that didn't need to be there that carried that label felon. Many of them have no way to get into housing because of that label. So we've got a lot of vulnerable people in this city, and maybe we can appeal to Mr. Gary Jackson to relinquish some of that $100,000 that he pardoned gives to the city.
Hello, I'm Carmen Ramos Kennedy, President of the Asheville Bunker Branch NAACP. It feels to me like all of these meetings that a lot of us go to, it's chronic that things are looked at, given to staff members, and somehow a year and a half later, the work that Beloved is doing has not reached anybody. Can't we get an individual that owns, or 2 individuals that own walking through? It seems like people can't pass things to each other's committee. Can we get a person, a role, a job for 2 people that is their job to track all of this stuff? It blows my mind that Amy is still asking for a bathroom a year and a half later. I mean, who holds their pee for a year and a half? I mean, come on, it really is despicable. And I just think it's time that we need to think more broadly, and we just can't depend on the staff to do everything. Can we get a job description for somebody that walks these things through the process? And I'm not talking about walking 6 months. Turn it around in a month or 2 and let people know what's going on. It's extremely frustrating to be in these meetings and hear folks talking about this over and over again. And I also want to say while I'm up here that the Asheville Buncombe County Branch NAACP absolutely endorses Code Asheville's petition. And I say amen to everything that B. Williams had to say. Thank you.
Hello there. Oh,
That microphone doesn't work.
yeah, okay. When was the last time I was in this building? I think the last time I was in this building was during that, the sit-in for the shooting, Jerry Williams.
Yeah.
I feel like that was when I watched, a bunch of people get arrested, at least one journalist got arrested. Nothing's changed. Nothing? Still? Wow, y'all. Really? How has nothing changed? What causes this? Like, do y'all not have any power at all? Where, okay, again, and the meetings that followed that, Tammy Hooper showed up maybe twice. She's not here today. Why no listening still? Just, okay. I guess. I'm trying hard not to say the things that I want to say, but it really makes me very mad all the time that y'all just kind of just sit there, just kind of, well, I guess we'll just listen to this. And then, what? What more? What more are you gonna take? What more is it gonna take? Bye.
If it's all right, I would like to speak as a private resident off of the agenda, but for public comment. And so I really want to speak to the budget. As a pastor, and I just want to say budgets are moral documents, once again. They tell us who we are and what we believe and where our heart is. And so I want to say that last year, I, among many people, spoke out of our heart and experience walking with impacted people. People with black and brown bodies, people who are homeless, people who are living in poverty in the city. And what we said is we need millions for the people. And that we are at a crisis, and we are definitely at a crisis this year considering our budget shortfall. We must decide. There's an old song that says, which side are you on? And we must decide this year in particular because of where our money seems to be laying in particular. And so I want to say that I came to this meeting, I came to city council meeting, and I brought numbers saying that we are over-policed, that our ratio, according to FBI data, says that we have more officers than we need. And we were asking for an increase for more officers for the downtown unit and for the South Loop. What we saw just months later is what happened to Mr. Rush. And he is one among many people that have encounters, negative encounters, that impact people's livelihoods, impact people's lives forever, cause physical harm, cause harm to people's housing situations, keep them in poverty. And so I want to ask for you all to take to council and to take the finance committee into this budget process, that we need millions for the people, that we need that $1.2 million earmarked last year for the police department. We need that to be moved over to end these disparities. We need to get on that path instead of having policing and over-policing of petty crime. So I'm calling for that $1.2 million to be going into the staffing for the racial equity manager's office and to poverty remediation through the transit budget. This is where our community desperately needs funds. People are dying because of this. And so I want to put it on your conscience to look at where that money is going and to be really clear about where our morals and ethics are. Because we need a city for our people. We need a city for our people. And it comes in the budget. We can say whatever we want about where we are with our people, but it's most reflected in where we put our funds. And so I'm begging you this year, with great urgency. Last year was almost too late, and we've seen people that have had their lives deeply and forever changed because of that decision. And I call on you to make a different decision this year. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Capasso. I'm actually a resident of New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm honored to be here in this city at this meeting on this day. I woke up this morning about 5 a.m. to say goodbye to my kids, and I got on a plane to Atlanta, and I took a car from Atlanta to get here. And I thought I would have a short meeting with the city attorney, and I would talk to maybe somebody in the mayor's office and meet a couple of community people. I represent Jerry Williams' family. mother. There was a part of me that I wanted to have her come with her family, but I just, the time constraints weren't going to do it, and I thought she was going to get it, but it would have been rough. It would have been sad for her, but she will be back, and she will be here. And I have to say sometimes that I love Asheville and this community so much because of who I am. I mean, I was selected by the family because just so happens somebody in their family knew somebody I went to law school with, and just like that. And I started to get involved in talking about, and I do community relations. I'm a criminal civil rights lawyer in Southeast Louisiana. I've done federal work in North Carolina, and I have a few good friends in Atlanta. So, but to get an opportunity to be part of this community and understand that I love this area. I mean, I met my wife at Old Fort. She was a Presbyterian counselor, and then she went to Rhodes College, and I met her in Memphis, and got married in Montreat. We came back many a times. When this happened with Jerry, it bothered me, and it bothered me, and it kept bothering me. And many a times, instead of Asheville, I would go to Burnsville. Burnsville's a great place. There's some powerful, holy people there. I go to Lake Junawaska, where Nancy Sehested and Ken married me live. I think about going to Hot Springs. People don't get jacked up on the Appalachian Trail when they're out of line or they miss a rock. They don't get kind of searched and trapped. We got that issue all across America. But what I wanted to tell you was, like many people, is that we can change this dynamic. We can really do this together. So many different things that people have been talking about. And I'm listening. I'm here. I'm interested in doing anything I can to help. And as a former community organizer, is that I just am honored for the folks that are doing stuff. And so many different issues as well, because again, poverty, homelessness, people getting out of jail. 94% of the people in jail are getting out. And are they going to be citizens? We have to get things set up for them, or else things go downhill, mental illness and other things, and it leads to maybe an officer saying, what's this person doing? Is this person doing what they're supposed to be doing? Is this person angry at something? Maybe they need help instead of something else. So I just want to say for the Williams family, I'm here to listen, and thank you.
Just want to try to get across that there's probably conversations happening with very powerful people in this town where they haven't been happening. That's the thing that needs to change. The people that are sucking this city dry, and they already have so much. Developers, police department, $30 million. Tourism Development Authority, $20 million. How do you talk to these people? How do you talk to all the powers that be? How do you have a conversation about what's really strategic to end poverty, to honor human dignity? I support Bloodhouse and their request. I support Dee Williams and her request, the NAACP, Ian Mance, Gary Williams, lawyer, all the people that have spoken their heart today. I believe the money's there, and a lot of other people believe the money's there, and that the city can pay its debt. That's kind of, that's fair, but there's a lot of other things that conversations can be had and figures can be looked at, and I think that y'all can definitely realize that it's in your best interest to have those conversations now rather than later. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that signed up? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm called Red Moon Song. I've been working for the past year and a half with Beloved Community, 12 Baskets, and a number of other organizations in town, because I'm old and I'm healthy and I've got the time to be able to put into these various organizations. I am not being paid for any of this, of course. And it's interesting because I own a truck. And because I own a truck, I am an owner. And I can go into any of these parking lots that say no trespassing. I can stop anywhere. I can park anywhere. I am in a whole different position. And I have never been this kind of homeless where police give you tickets for being homeless. And the other day, I'm over at 12 Baskets, and there's a woman in there with 3 children. She was trying to do, and this is the problem with Hayek, is because I've been going to all these Hayek meetings for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months or whatever. And they are they're the representatives of organizations that work with homeless people. So you've got Pisca Legal there. You've got like 16, 17 people that are representatives of the various organizations that work with homeless people here in Asheville. But they have their own agendas. They have their own things they need to talk about. Right now it's Code Purple, okay? Code Purple, Mission Hospital has closed, the other mission place, Rescue Mission, yeah, has closed, so no men can come in there under Code Purple. So I'm talking to this woman and I said, what's the deal? She says, I'm trying to find a place. It's gonna be Code Purple with 3 kids for the next week. And I said, well, they still let women in there? She says, that's true. She says, but when we went to eat in the cafeteria, 2 men got in a fight. And she says, I don't want my kids around that kind of violence, so I really don't know what I'm gonna do. So I pulled up in front of Beloved Community on Sunday morning at 7:30 to drop off some food and some other things, and there's already people standing out in front with children that are cold, and there's no place to go because they have to leave at 7 o'clock in the morning when they're staying somewhere. And I'm like, this is insane that there's no place for people who are cold. And with kids, I can't imagine having had my 3 kids and been homeless in 20-degree weather. Are you kidding me? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And there's money here. And that's the thing. There's abandoned buildings. I said, what is the square footage in this town of things that are not used all night long, in the evenings, in the mornings? There's tons of places everywhere. And as situations get more and more difficult, and they are for all of us everywhere, this is not a blip that's going to go away. Things are going to get more and more difficult. And so all over the world, people have had to share things. They've had to change rules. When Katrina went in, and I heard the guy talk to it, he started the tiny houses stuff down there in Katrina with no codes and no zoning and no nothing, because it's an emergency. And that's why I said, these are emergency situations. This is not just like, I have a place to rest my head. It's 61 degrees in here. And when no one else is there, it's still 61 degrees in there. And I'm thinking, this is a waste. This is a total waste of this whole house I live in with other people, of course, but still, it's 61 degrees. Why don't I have an SRO, a single room occupancy? Why don't I have a boarding school? Why don't I have something that I can offer personally? Because I don't see the stuff being done. The money, they say the money's not there for places for people to be able to be during the day when it's cold, for housing that's really affordable, not this 220, whatever it is that they call affordable housing, which makes me insane. Insane.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just like, as a citizen, I'm just like stuck with not knowing how I can possibly do stuff besides what I do, which is haul food and haul people and haul situations and come to these places and listen to what you folks have to listen to all the people that are contributing these thoughts and these ideas and their passions about what they'd like to do. So I don't have the answers, except I know the money is around. I know this. And I'm sincerely hoping that we can all work together and come up with some ways where there's more justice, not just us, but justice for everyone.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Can I jump up real quick one more time? Get the kid a break.
You can talk to us afterwards.
All right.
I would like to thank everyone that spoke today. We are trying our best to listen. I do think that the most important changes that will come out of this will be community driven, and that's why we're listening.